right, I'm here with Mr. Nathan Morris. He's, I guess in general, you just call Nathan an entrepreneur. And yeah, he would kind of be the quintessential entrepreneur because some of the things that he has done and is doing. So he runs this thing called Entrepreneur's Inner Circle, of which I'm a member, and I'd suggest you become a member as well. He's been doing this stuff for over 10 years, so he knows his way around this stuff. He's an author. He's written an Amazon.com bestseller. He consults with gigantic companies like Toshiba, depending on where you're from, Sears, MTV, and Nickelodeon. And now he's here with me on This Week in Photo to talk about a whole litany of stuff that I have lined up to pepper his brain with while I have him on the hot seat, so I could hopefully get a little bit of what's in his head into my head and then ostensibly your head. So welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's kick this off. After that grandiose introduction I just did, let's talk about some, I wanted to take this in the direction of just what some brass tack things that photographers can do to move from being a shooter, assuming that they want to just move, they want to be in business for themselves and make money, moving from just being a hobbyist into being a pro. So let's kick it off with some common mistakes, like some common mistakes that you see in the hobbyist mindset before they make that leap into actually getting money in the door.
Sure. So I'm not a photographer myself. I know enough about photography probably to be dangerous, but I'm definitely a total amateur in that regard. I've definitely dealt with a lot of photographers over the years, and I've also consulted with a couple. And one of the very first things when I was thinking about for this show, I was like, well, what is one of the biggest mistakes that I see over and over again every time that I work with a photographer? And I thought, I actually haven't done business with a photographer more than once or twice. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, I've never done business with a photographer more than once. Yeah. And that's strange to me because I've never actually hired a photographer that I was unsatisfied with. There was nothing wrong with their work. I mean, their photos were beautiful. They had great equipment. Everything about them was great. They treated me with respect. They showed up on time, those kind of things. Well, except for maybe one or so. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that I started thinking about is that, when it came time to get other photos done, whether it was for professional use or whether it was for the family or something like that, I found that, there was somebody else there that was standing right there that was within reach, whether it was a friend or maybe it was a friend of a friend or maybe it was another photographer who had an ad out that I saw. And I responded to that person rather than to the person that I was already satisfied with. Now, a lot of us, we think to ourselves, well, if someone is really satisfied with our work, if we do a great job and everything, the hobbyist, the person that's just new to business, they think, well, of course they'll be loyal to me and they'll come back. And whenever they need another photo or whatever done, they'll say, hey, Nathan, let's call up Nathan, get him. But the reality is that unless you've just done a stellar job that's just knocking it out of the ballpark, and even if you have, a lot of times they just don't remember you because you're out of their mind. You're out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. So that's one of the very biggest mistakes is not following up with people after the fact. And the other thing is that most of them niche themselves, which is a good thing. They niche themselves as wedding photographers or as maybe a band photographer or a professional headshot photographer. But the problem is that they never expanded beyond that. So if they did a wedding with me, for example, my wife and I got married not long ago, they kind of had the attitude of they were done with me forever. Well, that's a shame because there's still going to be family photos and other things. And going out and getting another customer every time is going to be time consuming for sure. And also can be very expensive if you're advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like the problem that you're seeing, or that one of the issues is that one touch point, get the money, get the cash, and run. Whereas it's important to build that relationship. So the thing boils down to building a long-term relationship that you can nurture and then hit, especially in the case of a wedding, right? Like you were saying, there's many life events that happen down the line after the wedding that you want that client to be in. You want to be in that client's mind when those things happen, when they need a photographer. So how do you do that? How do you build a repeat client? I mean, is it as simple as putting them on a mailing list and just saying, hey, I'm still here. It's Halloween. I can do Halloween pictures, or is it deeper than that?
Well, I could start out by telling you it's really complicated and there's all kinds of things that you need to know. And it's kind of true. But at the same time, not doing anything at all is the biggest mistake of all. So if even you just send out a monthly email that just says, hey, I'm still here, that's better than just completely ignoring them completely. Yeah. Now, with that said, what you need to do is, first of all, the great thing about photographers is that you get an opportunity to really spend a lot of time with your client. So, you get to know them, you get to know their personality, you get to know their family and things like that typically when you work with them. Now, the good news about that is that you already kind of have a relationship with them. So now let's continue that on a little bit. So let's put them on an email list. Let's put them on a mailing list. You know that old thing called snail mail?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people really enjoy getting letters from people that they know, especially in this day and age when people don't get real mail anymore. So once a month, send out a little one-page newsletter. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy, or send it out via email if you prefer, or both. You could do both, and that way if they miss your email or if they miss your snail mail thing, then they're still going to get it, hopefully, in one way or the other. And the content, you say, well, what do I send them? Do I send them photography tips or whatever? No, you send them photos that you've done. But more importantly, don't necessarily try to sell them every time, but start talking about a little bit of life with Frederick. What is it like to be with Frederick on a daily basis? Who are some of the cool people that he's gotten to photograph lately? And put those kinds of things in there, because people like to read about people they know. And you want to kind of create this relationship, this kind of friendship with them, so that, they will think of you when they have an interesting opportunity, or they might have never thought of you for family photos or something, and they see a family photo that you did. They really love it. And they're like, hey, we haven't had a family photo in 10 years. Let's call them up. And so you get that opportunity without really selling. You don't have to be like one of those super pushy kind of guys. You could just use your relationship to double, triple, quadruple your business.
And stay in that person's mind. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I was on the fence about the whole snail mail thing, because you and I had spoken about that briefly a while ago. But when I signed up for the Entrepreneur's Inner Circle, of course I'm on your list, and I get your newsletters, and I'm like, okay, now I understand, because everyone in the world is sending emails, and I get emails and I just delete, archive, delete all day long. But when I get something substantive in the mail from someone that is, that I respect in the industry and that has taken the time, I think that's the big part, that has taken the time to put together this thing that looks awesome, and I'm getting this in the mail, it has more impact than just, yet another email from someone. So yeah, I'd have to second that as being on the receiving end of some of your mailing. So that's awesome. So then what about Twitter? So fast forwarding out of the world of physical snail mail and all that stuff, we've got social media. And specifically, I want to talk about Twitter. How does that factor into all this stuff? Should it be a cohesive, integrated thing, or are you just dropping tweets out every now and then to keep on top of people's minds?
I think that with Twitter, for the most part, it's still a relationship building medium. So you're not necessarily going to drive business through Twitter. You can, but it's not necessarily a media that I would use to be specifically trying to get people to a website or specifically trying to get people to take action with. Now, you might get that or you might not. But first of all, you want to make sure that you're following the people that you're doing business with, obviously. So you want to have another way of being in their life so that they're seeing you on a regular basis. Again, your tweets don't necessarily have to be about photography. In fact, I would actually recommend that your Twitter account is actually kind of more of a personal thing. It's maybe not as personal as you would, your real personal stuff. You don't want to be too silly or whatever, but you don't want to necessarily be so-and-so photography and then try to, build a following on Twitter that way. I don't think that's the ideal way to do it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Twitter, and see, I don't know a whole lot about Facebook, and I think Facebook is a really powerful medium for photographers, but I know a lot more about Twitter. And with Twitter, the cool thing that you can do is there's a tool out there called Manage Flitter, MANAGEFLITTER. You can Google it if you didn't quite catch that. And it's a really cool tool to manage your Twitter following, if you will. So one of the things that it allows you to do is you can search out followers of other people that you are like, or you can actually search for people in your hometown that have certain things in their profile. So let's say, for example, that one of the things that you're looking for people that are getting married in your area because you're a wedding photographer. Well, a very simple thing you could do is you could start searching for people that are searching or typing about their planning of their wedding with certain keywords. Then you could follow those people. This is the equivalent of basically just tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, I'm over here. Right. And then, of course, when they see someone has followed them, they'll usually look at them and say, hey, who is this guy? Who is this girl? And at that point, they'll make a decision whether they want to follow you or not. But the point is you can start to build this little following in your own community or within your own niche, or if maybe you're an artist or something like that, you could follow people that are following artists that are like you. So I think it's a really cool little way to do it. Facebook and some of the others don't allow you to do it quite like that. So it's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of Twitter, and I've built a very large Twitter following.
How many people do you have following
like
you on Twitter right now?
21,000, something like that.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so when you look at Twitter and managing and staying in touch with that 21,000 user base, how are you doing everything manually? In other words, are you tweeting real time? Like, okay, right now I have something interesting to say, so I'm going to tweet about it. Or do you use some of the services that are out there to sort of queue up tweets so that you can have them sort of dripping out over time?
I do a little bit of both. I think it's important to have those kind of sporadic things in there. So, when I'm doing something really cool, I'll take a picture of it, put it up on Twitter immediately. And if I'm doing something that might have some kind of connection with some of the people that I'm influencing, in other words, if I'm at a particular type of sporting event with a certain team or anything like that, that I can connect with people that, don't know that they have that in common with me, I'll make sure to put that out. But manual stuff is a little bit not very time efficient. Now, if you're on Twitter anyway, great. But if you're like me and you're busy, then I also do some automatic stuff. So I do schedule some of my tweets. I schedule certain quotes and things like that to go out, which people really enjoy. And it gives me another opportunity to show up in their Twitter feed. But then also I have a blog. So what I'll do is I actually just automatically tweet old blog posts back onto Twitter. So if you use WordPress, there's plenty of plugins to do this. I use one, I think it's called Tweetly. And I could just set it up to run every 36 hours or so and just post, hey, you might have missed. And the interesting thing is you would think that, for example, if you have an ego like I do, I guess, you would think that people read every blog post that you put out and that you could never repeat something on Twitter or anywhere else. But I've got people that are even big fans of mine that are, retweeting and commenting on posts that I wrote almost a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And it's like brand new to them. And I actually have taken the date and time off of my posts and stuff too, but they never noticed it anyway. So, you could kind of mix and match. I think if you're blogging, especially if you're a photographer and you've got little, cool photos or cool stories especially. So if you've gotten a chance to shoot a celebrity, a local celeb, anything like that, that definitely needs to go in your automatic feed.
See, that is awesome. That tip is golden, because I had not considered going back in time and mining. I think, like, on This Week in Photo, we're up to episode 326 right now, and it's always, okay, what's next? And it never really occurred to me to remind people, because we're getting new people all the time listening to the show, so why not remind them or let them know about all this other gold that's behind us? That's a great tip. Thank you for that. So let's wrap it up a little bit. I want to talk about the transition going from just a plain, and I use the word plain tongue in cheek, but a plain photographer that it's not so much a professional, but you're like me, I don't shoot all day every day, but I shoot occasionally. I make some money, so going from that to a full-time IRS sanctioned photographer, I know marketing has to be in there somewhere. Explain from your perspective, how would someone go from the hobbyist level all the way up through to, okay, this is what I do and I call myself a pro?
Sure. So here's the mindset that everybody has. And I was one of them. And I know many artists especially fall into this category. And the mindset is this: I'm going to become a photographer. So I got to get better equipment. I got to get better at my craft. I got to learn lighting. I got to learn this and I got to learn that. And I'm going to work on my craft. I'm going to become the best wedding photographer there is. Yeah. Unfortunately, you could do all of that. You can spend all that money. You can spend all that time and get all that equipment. But at the end of the day, if you don't have any clients, you don't have a business. And that's a really big problem. And, a lot of people are puzzled when they've spent just years perfecting whatever it is that they do. And they get to a point where they're looking around. There's guys that have half the experience and half the equipment and half of the ability, and they're mopping the floor with them in terms of getting clients and actually putting dollars in the bank. Yeah. And so if you're going to step out and this isn't going to be an art form anymore, and even if it is, if you're going to try to make a living at it, then the mindset change has to change to being a marketer of photography services, not necessarily a photographer. So when you describe yourself, instead of describing yourself, maybe not to other people, but to yourself, you think of yourself, instead of being in the photography business, I'm in the marketing business of photography services. Yeah. And it seems like a semantics thing, but it really is an important distinction, because once you see that, you say, okay, well, what do I need to get better at? Well, I need to get better at marketing. That's what I need to get better at. And that doesn't mean necessarily putting out more ads. It means, how do you deal with clients and how do you encourage them to refer? how do you get them to come back again and again? Are there some ways that maybe we could build into our business a way that we guarantee that they're going to come back again and again? So maybe they get billed monthly for, they're going to get their family portrait every year and whatever. I mean, depending on your business and how you want to run it. And so that's one of the things that we talk a lot about in Entrepreneurs Inner Circle, as you know, and that is that basically we want to talk about how can we design a business that works around the way that we want to do business. But most importantly, how can we focus on taking these really cool marketing ideas from other businesses and kind of time-proven stuff and apply it to, in this case, the photography business? And that's really where the defining line is between the guy who's not making any money and the guy that's making quite a lot of money.
The guy it's the difference between driving a cheap car and maybe an expensive car.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just, before we wrap this up, I want to have you, because we talked about Entrepreneurs Inner Circle a little bit, and I want to get into it just a little bit deeper so that folks that are watching this or listening to this know what that is. Because I would, like I said at the beginning, I would encourage folks to definitely check it out. It's a really cool thing that you put together there, and it's like a direct conduit into your brain. So explain the genesis of that and where it came from and who it's for.
Well, originally it actually started out as a financial coaching program. So I've done a lot of work with people on their personal finances, helping them get out of debt and that kind of thing. And then as it kind of evolved, I started realizing that this is more and more of a psychological thing. And the people that were in it were more and more interested in saying, hey, I understand that I need to probably be out of debt and that I probably need to have some savings. And then, I'd introduced this concept that there's this third leg of financial freedom that most people never get, which is that eventually you've got to stop relying on a single primary source of income, whether that be your job in most people's cases or one client if you're a photographer or something like that. That's a very bad place to be, is one. So essentially it kind of grew out of that, but I've been doing a lot of different things. So I've done a lot of software development. I've done a lot of creative services and consulting. I've done a lot of publishing. I've got a lot of products in the automotive industry, for example. I believe actually, Frederick, you and I met through a software product that I developed for an e-commerce solution,
yes,
of all things. And so I've done a whole lot of different things. And I said, well, hey, let's start teaching other entrepreneurs how to do these things. And for me, it came out of the fact that, frankly, I didn't have a support group. I didn't have any people that I could share this information with, that they could share with me. And so I wanted to develop an organization where entrepreneurs of all kinds, whether they're just starting out, they don't know what the heck they're doing in the first place, or they've been in for a long time and they're just kind of spinning their wheels, to kind of come together and get some proven stuff that actually will work, that they can take to their business today and start using to start making more money and to get themselves out of the woods if they're in the woods, or to, really blow up like they've been wanting to for a long time.
Yeah.
And also to network with one another, make connections and stuff like that, so that, when I hear of somebody, when I meet somebody that could be a really good resource to somebody, usually I try to reach out to them and let them know and connect them and things like that. So it's a very cool professional development organization if you're serious about getting into business, or if you want to expand your business abilities, and especially if you want to try to make your business about your lifestyle rather than what everybody else wants for you.
I love that. I love that the diversification thing you hinted at. One of the analogies that I like to draw is it's like a submarine. If folks know much about submarines, you know that they're compartmentalized so that if they take a torpedo hit, one compartment floods and the whole thing doesn't go down. If it was just one, like you were saying, one torpedo would take it down. The analogy, the direct relationship to business or a job would be your world, or Frederick Inc. is that submarine with just one source of income. That's one torpedo that can take me down. But if I split it up into multiple, then one goes away and I'm not sinking, anytime soon. So yeah, that's great advice. So where's Entrepreneurs or the Academy at, and where or the Inner Circle? Where's the Inner Circle at that people can go check it out?
Yeah, it's at nathanwmorris.com, nathanwmorris.com /TWIP. So I set up a special page for you guys so that you can go there. And when you go, there's 2 coaching calls, and the name of this course is probably going to change because I'm not sure that I love it, but it's called Profit Explosion Blueprint. And it's basically 2 past coaching calls that I did, that there's about a dozen different creative systems that I explained. And basically what this was is I took some of my information from when I worked with Nickelodeon and some of these other bigger companies and basically discussed how you take these dull, normal, average ideas or business ideas and how you come up with brand new ones, or how you find hidden profit centers in a business that you already have, or whatever. And it's just a very cool little 2 CD set, and then there's also an additional set to kind of get you set up into Entrepreneur's Inner Circle and let you know what it's all about and how it works and all that. And it's a $197 course, but it's free for you guys. Just ask that you pay for shipping, and you get a 2-month trial of the Entrepreneur's Inner Circle, which means that you get access to our monthly coaching calls, which Frederick can tell you a little bit about that and testify to that.
Yep.
The newsletter as well, and some other benefits that are very valuable if you're at all interested in being in business for yourself, or you are currently.
Very cool. Thank you for putting that together. That's valuable stuff, and you heard it here. I'm using it, so definitely go dive in, listeners, and check that out. Cool, Nathan. All right, well, I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon. This was a great chat, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. I'll definitely be listening to you going forward, but let's definitely stay in touch. And This Week in Photo listeners, I'm sure we'll have a ton of questions for you going forward too. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right. Take care.
Take care.